Adam sat in his small, dimly lit apartment, trying to focus on the task at hand. The hum of the workbench mixed with the occasional clink of tools, but his mind wasn't on the repairs today. His hands worked on the mechanical parts out of habit, but his thoughts wandered. He had just finished fixing a broken engine for a client, and the money from the job wasn't much, but it would be enough to get him through the month. Adam was used to the simple life of a mechanic, fixing things and moving from one job to the next. There wasn't much excitement, but he didn't mind. It was peaceful. Then, the letter arrived. It was an odd sight. The envelope was large, sealed with an unfamiliar symbol, and it looked expensive. Adam stared at it for a moment before finally picking it up. The weight of it in his hand felt strange, almost like it carried a secret. His name was written on the front, clear and bold, but there was no return address. He opened the letter carefully, intrigued but hesitant. The paper was thick, the kind of paper you would find in an old-fashioned book. The writing on it was elegant yet strange. He had never seen anything quite like it. "Dear Adam, if you are reading this letter, then I am no longer in this world. By the time this reaches you, I will have passed. I know this may come as a shock, but my time has come, and I have left something for you. You may be wondering who I am. My name is Jorath. We met once, long ago, at a conference on the Outer Rim. You may not remember, but I've kept a close eye on you. You have always been a good man, and I believe you are the right person for this task. You may also be wondering what I'm talking about. What I'm leaving you is something precious. It is my wife, Nyara. She is an alien, a member of a peaceful species from a distant world. She has been my partner for many years, and now I am asking you to take care of her. Do not ask questions, just yet. I trust you will know what to do when the time comes. Nyara is a beautiful, intelligent, and capable woman, but she has a heavy heart. She will need someone to guide her through the difficult days ahead. I know this is a lot to ask, but I believe in you. You are more than you know, Adam. You have the strength to do what is required. Take care of her. I know she will be in good hands. Yours sincerely, Jorath." Adam sat frozen, holding the letter in his hands. The room around him seemed to blur as his thoughts raced. The message was bizarre, and yet something about it felt real. Nyara. The name echoed in his mind. The idea of inheriting a wife from someone he barely knew sounded ridiculous. He was a mechanic, an ordinary human. What could he possibly do with an alien wife? He shook his head, trying to make sense of it. But before he could make any conclusions, there was a knock at the door. Adam jumped, startled as the sound echoed through the quiet apartment. He hadn't expected anyone. He opened the door cautiously, and standing there was a tall figure, a woman unlike anyone Adam had ever seen. Her skin was a deep shade of blue, smooth and flawless, and her eyes were a mesmerizing shade of violet that seemed to glow slightly in the dim light. Her long, dark hair flowed behind her like liquid silk, and she was dressed in elegant robes that shimmered as if they were made of another world. "Are you Adam?" she asked, her voice soft and calm, but carrying an undeniable authority. Adam blinked. His heart skipped a beat. This woman, this alien, was standing in his doorway. She looked just like the description in the letter. Yes, that's me," he stammered. "Can I help you?" "I am Nyara," she said, her gaze steady and calm. "Jorath left me in your care. He passed away not long ago, and now I am to be with you." Adam could hardly believe what he was hearing. He had only just read Jorath's letter, and now here was Nyara standing before him, looking every bit like the woman described in the letter. He opened the door wider and gestured for her to enter. "Come in," he said, still processing everything. I don't know what to say." Nyara stepped inside gracefully, her movements fluid as if she were gliding through the air. She looked around the apartment, her eyes taking in every detail, from the worn furniture to the tools scattered around the workbench. Adam had never felt so out of place in his own home. "I know this is strange," Niara said, her voice low. "Joreth spoke of you often. He trusted you, and that is why he asked you to take care of me." Adam nodded, still unable to fully comprehend the situation. I don't understand. Why me? Why not someone else?" Niara paused, her gaze softening. "I am from a world far beyond your own, a world where peace is fragile, and alliances are made through bonds such as the one Joreth and I shared. My people. We are few, and those who live among humans are even fewer. I do not know why Joreth chose you, but he believed you would understand. Perhaps he saw something in you that you do not yet see in yourself." Adam felt a surge of doubt. He was just a mechanic. What did he know about alien politics or intergalactic peace treaties? He couldn't be the person Niara needed. "You don't need to understand everything right now," Niara continued, sensing his unease. "I am not asking for anything more than your companionship. I need someone to help me navigate this new chapter of my life. Joreth is gone, and I must learn to live without him. You don't have to be anything more than a friend. For now." Adam looked at her, and despite the alien features and strange aura she carried, he could see the sadness in her eyes. She was grieving, just as much as he was struggling with the confusion of it all. "Okay," he said slowly, his voice more confident than he felt. "I'll help. I don't know what exactly I can do, but I'll try." Niara's eyes softened, and she gave a small nod. "Thank you, Adam. I will not ask more of you than you can give. For now, let us take one step at a time." Over the next few days, Adam found himself adjusting to the strange new reality. Niara was not like any woman he had ever met. She carried herself with an air of grace and dignity, yet there was a quiet sorrow that seemed to hang over her like a dark cloud. She would often sit by the window, staring out at the stars, lost in thought. Adam tried to make her feel at home, but the reality was that he didn't know how. He was used to his simple life, working with his hands, not being responsible for the emotional well-being of an alien woman. But as he spent more time with Niara, he began to understand why Joreth had trusted him. There was something about her, something beyond her beauty, that made him want to protect her, to help her find peace again. One evening, as the sun set, and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Adam and Niara sat on the small balcony of his apartment. She had made herself comfortable on the old wicker chair, her gaze turned toward the heavens. "I miss him," Niara said softly, almost to herself. "Joreth was more than my husband. He was my anchor, my guide. Without him, I feel lost." Adam didn't know what to say, but he could feel the weight of her words. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, not knowing if it was enough. She turned to him then, her violet eyes searching his face. "You're not the one who needs to apologize, Adam. You are not the one who left me behind." There was silence between them, a silence that wasn't uncomfortable but filled with understanding. Adam realized that despite the strange circumstances, he had agreed to help her because he felt he had no choice. He had to help Niara, not because of Joreth's request, but because he couldn't let this alien woman face the world alone. Adam had never expected his life to change so dramatically. One moment he was working alone in his small mechanic shop, and the next, he found himself with an alien wife from another world. The situation was strange, to say the least. He'd thought the letter was some kind of joke, but Niara's arrival made it impossible to deny. She was real. Her deep blue skin, her elegant features, and her mysterious violet eyes were unlike anything Adam had ever seen. The days after her arrival were filled with confusion. Adam tried to adjust, but it wasn't easy. He had lived his whole life as a simple mechanic, never expecting to be thrown into a situation that felt so out of his depth. Niara, however, seemed to handle the situation with an odd grace. She never complained, never seemed uncomfortable in his small apartment, but Adam could tell she was holding something back. For the first few days, Niara stayed mostly in her room, only coming out to eat or when Adam needed her help with something. Around the apartment, she didn't seem interested in much. Occasionally, she would go to the window, staring out at the stars as if lost in thought. Adam didn't know what to say to her. He had no experience with aliens, let alone one who had just lost her husband. One evening, Adam decided to do something different. He made dinner. Nothing fancy, just a simple meal of pasta and vegetables, and invited Niara to join him. She looked at him with a soft, curious expression, but nodded and accepted. She had been polite, but he had noticed she was often distant, as though her mind was elsewhere. Sitting down across from him at the small table, Niara finally spoke. "You have prepared food for me?" Her voice was gentle, but there was something in it that Adam couldn't quite place. Was it curiosity? Sadness? Maybe both. Adam nodded. "Yeah, I thought we could eat together." "It's probably been a long time since you've had Earth food." Niara glanced at the plate in front of her, her violet eyes scanning the simple meal. "I have never tasted food like this before." Adam chuckled. "Well, it's not the best, but it'll do. If you don't like it, I can always make something else tomorrow." Niara picked up her fork, still hesitant. She seemed unsure of what to do with it, as if she were unfamiliar with how to eat the food in front of her. Adam watched her for a moment, then stood up and grabbed a napkin from the table. He sat next to her and gently showed her how to use the fork to cut the pasta. "Here," he said softly. "Just like this." Niara watched him closely, then tried for herself. Slowly, she began to mimic his movements, though her attempts were far from graceful. Still, she smiled, a small, hesitant smile that seemed to warm the room. It was the first time Adam had seen her smile in days, and it made him feel like he was doing something right. "You have a kind way about you, Adam," Niara said quietly, looking at him. "It is rare for one of your kind to show such patience." Adam paused, surprised by her words. "I'm just trying to help. I know this isn't easy for you, and I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'll try my best." Niara looked at him for a long moment, her violet eyes searching his face as if trying to read him. She then nodded, though her expression remained guarded. "I appreciate it, more than you know." As they continued to eat, the conversation turned to something more casual. Adam learned a little about Niara's past. She came from a planet called Thalor, a peaceful world known for its advanced technology and beautiful landscapes. Her people lived in harmony with nature, with an understanding of balance and respect for all life. Adam was fascinated by her descriptions of her world. It sounded like something out of a science fiction novel, but he could see the sincerity in her eyes as she spoke. "I was born into a family of scholars," Niara explained. "We studied the stars, the galaxies, and the many civilizations that inhabited them. My people have always sought peace, even when others warred around us. It is in our nature to find balance, to heal rather than destroy." Adam listened intently. He had never known much about alien cultures, except what he'd seen in movies or read in books, but Niara's words were different. She spoke with such conviction, such reverence for her people's beliefs, that Adam couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. "But what about your husband, Jorath?" Adam asked hesitantly. "What was he like?" Niara's face darkened at the mention of Jorath's name. For a moment, she didn't answer. Her fingers lightly traced the rim of her glass, lost in thought. Then, finally, she spoke. "Jorath was a kind man, she said softly. He was a diplomat, a bridge between my people and other alien species. We met during a mission to secure peace with a race that had been at war with my people for centuries. He was brave, dedicated, and always put others before himself. I loved him dearly. Adam could sense the pain in her voice, the weight of her words. Jorath had been more than just a husband to Niara. He had been her partner, her equal. Adam couldn't imagine what it must have been like for her to lose him. I'm sorry, Adam said quietly, his voice filled with empathy. I can't even begin to understand what you're going through. Niara nodded, but there was a small, understanding smile on her lips. I do not expect you to understand. I am grateful that you are here, Adam. That is enough for me. The rest of the evening passed in relative silence. Adam and Niara finished their meal, and Adam cleaned up, while Niara stood by the window again, her gaze fixed on the stars. Adam tried not to stare, but he couldn't help noticing how lonely she looked. She was an alien, a beautiful woman from a world far away, and yet in that moment she seemed just as lost and fragile as any person who had lost someone they loved. The following days were much like the first. Adam went to work at his mechanic shop, fixing engines and taking on small jobs from the locals. Niara would stay at the apartment, spending her time exploring Earth's culture through books and the occasional documentary. She never seemed bored, but Adam knew she missed her. Home! He could see it in the way she gazed at the stars every night. One evening, after Adam returned from work, he found Niara sitting by the window, a deep frown on her face. This time, however, something was different. She wasn't just staring into space. She was thinking, struggling with something. What's on your mind? Adam asked, setting down his tools as he approached her. Niara looked up, her eyes clouded with uncertainty. I have been thinking about my planet, my people, and what Jorath wanted for us, she said softly. I am not sure how to move. Forward, Adam. I have lost so much. I do not know if I am strong enough to carry on his legacy. Adam sat beside her, trying to think of something comforting to say. I think you're stronger than you give yourself credit for, he said quietly. I don't know what's ahead, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm here and I'll help you. Niara turned to him, her violet eyes shining with a mixture of gratitude and something else, something deeper. You have already helped me more than you know. You gave me a place to rest, to grieve, to heal. Adam didn't know what the future held for him and Niara. He wasn't sure if he could ever understand the depths of her loss, but he knew one thing. He wouldn't turn his back on her. Whatever happened, they would face it together. As the days turned into weeks, Adam found himself getting more comfortable with Niara's presence. It was strange, living with an alien wife from another world, but it was also right. There was something about her that made him feel at peace. Something about her calm demeanor and quiet strength that made him want to protect her, to help her find her place in this strange new world. The days following Adam's decision to help Niara were filled with new challenges. Each day seemed to bring something unexpected, but Adam was starting to find comfort in the routine. Niara was still distant at times, but she had begun to open up more, and that gave Adam hope. They had settled into a strange sort of rhythm. He would work on repairs during the day, and she would spend her time in the apartment, learning more about Earth, its culture, and people. But despite the quiet peace in their daily lives, Adam knew there was something more to Niara's story. Jorath's letter had made it clear. He had left Niara with more than just a simple request for care. There was something about her past, something important, that Adam still didn't understand. It wasn't just her grief over Jorath's death, there was a heaviness in her heart that she wasn't sharing. One evening, Adam returned from work. to find Nyara sitting by the window, just like she had every night since her arrival. The apartment was dim, the only light coming from the soft glow of the streetlights outside. But this time, Adam noticed something different in her posture. She wasn't staring aimlessly into space. Her shoulders were tense, her expression serious. "Nyara?" Adam called softly as he entered the room. She turned her head slowly to look at him. There was a shadow in her eyes, a quiet sadness that he hadn't seen before. "There is something I must tell you," she said, her voice steady but heavy with emotion. Adam's heart skipped a beat. He had been waiting for this moment, the moment when Nyara would finally open up about whatever was weighing on her. He sat down beside her, his eyes full of curiosity and concern. "What is it?" he asked gently. Nyara took a deep breath before speaking. "Jorath. His death was not an accident." Adam's stomach dropped at her words. He had never considered the possibility that Jorath's death might have been anything other than natural. The idea seemed absurd. Jorath had been healthy, a man of great strength and intellect, but the way Nyara spoke, there was a coldness to her words, a bitterness that made Adam's heart race. "What do you mean?" Adam asked, his voice low. Nyara looked out the window again, her eyes distant as if she could see far beyond the stars. "Jorath was part of a peace mission. He was working with several alien factions to prevent a war between my people and a rival species. The mission was crucial, and he knew the risks. But there were others, people who didn't want peace, people who wanted to keep the war alive. Jorath was targeted." Adam's mind raced. "So, his death was caused by someone? But who?" Nyara's eyes darkened. "There are factions in the galaxy that thrive on conflict. They want power, control, and they will do anything to ensure that peace is never an option. Jorath was a threat to them, a symbol of hope for my people. When he died, the peace he had worked for began to unravel." Adam felt a chill run down his spine. He had known there were dangers in the universe, but he had never imagined that something so far away could reach out and touch his life in this way. "You're saying Jorath was murdered?" Nyara nodded solemnly. "Yes. And now, with him gone, there is no one to continue his work. The factions are growing stronger. The peace treaty between my people and others is at risk." Adam felt overwhelmed. This was no longer just about helping a grieving woman. Nyara wasn't just a widow, she was a key player in a galactic struggle for peace. And now Adam had become entangled in it. He had no idea what he was supposed to do, but one thing was clear. He couldn't ignore the danger that was closing in on them. "I didn't know," Adam said quietly. "I never realized how big this all was." Nyara looked at him with a mixture of sadness and gratitude. "No one knows, Adam. No one except those who were involved. But now you must know, because you are a part of it." Adam's mind raced as he processed her words. What was he supposed to do now? He was just a mechanic from Earth. How could he possibly help in a galactic conflict like this? But Nyara was looking at him with such trust, with such hope in her eyes, that he couldn't bring himself to turn away. "Is there anything I can do?" he asked, his voice filled with uncertainty, but determination. Nyara hesitated, her eyes searching his face. "There may be something," she said slowly, "but it will not be easy. I need to return to Thalor, my home planet. There I can try to rally the remaining allies who supported Jorath's vision. But to do so, I need to know I can trust those who would help me, and I need someone to watch my back, someone who knows how to fight." Adam's heart raced. "Fight? I'm not a soldier. I don't know how to fight anyone." Nyara smiled faintly. "Neither did Jorath when he began. But he learned, and now you must too." Adam swallowed hard. He had always been good with his hands, fixing machines and engines. But fighting? That was something completely different. Still, the thought of standing by Nyara, of helping her secure peace for her people, stirred something in him. Maybe he wasn't a soldier, but he could learn. For her, and for Jorath's legacy, he would try. "When do we leave?" he asked, determination filling his voice. Nyara's eyes softened, and for the first time since arriving, Adam saw a glimmer of hope in them. "Soon," she said quietly, "but first, we must prepare." The next few days were filled with tension and uncertainty. Adam knew that leaving Earth and traveling to Thalor meant leaving behind everything he knew, but as the days passed, he found himself growing more and more determined. He couldn't let Nyara face this alone, and he couldn't let the peace. Jorath had worked for Crumble without doing something about it. Nyara helped him gather the necessary supplies for their journey. She had some knowledge of Earth technology, but there was still much she had to learn. Adam found himself teaching her about the planet, the way it functioned, and the things that made Earth unique. It wasn't much, but he could see that she was grateful for it. It gave her something to hold on to as they prepared for what lay ahead. On the third night after their conversation, as they sat in silence in the living room, there was a knock at the door. Adam looked at Nyara, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. "Who could be visiting them at this hour?" "Stay here," Adam said, his voice low. He stood up and cautiously approached the door. He peered through the peephole, and what he saw made his heart skip a beat. Standing on the other side was a figure he didn't recognize, an alien, tall and cloaked in a dark, flowing robe. The figure had a sense of authority about them, something that made Adam instinctively tense. He opened the door slowly, just a crack, to speak with the stranger. "Can I help you?" The alien's eyes, bright yellow and piercing, locked onto Adam's. "I have come on behalf of those who still seek peace," the figure said, their voice low and gravelly. "You are Adam, yes? The one who inherited Nyara?" Adam's heart began to race. "Who are you?" The next few days were a blur of preparation. Adam had never imagined that his quiet life as a mechanic would lead him to a journey across the stars, much less to a war-torn planet on the edge of a galactic conflict. But now, standing side by side with Nyara, he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of purpose. She needed him, and though he wasn't sure he was the right person for the job, he was determined to help. Nyara had always been composed, but Adam could see the tension building inside her. The past few days, she had been distant again, lost in thought, constantly staring at the stars. He could only imagine the weight of the responsibility that rested on her shoulders. Jorath's death, the peace her people so desperately needed, and now the potential for war, it was a lot for anyone to bear. And yet, she did it with a grace that Adam admired. As they sat in the small apartment discussing their plans, Daxar's sudden arrival had taken Adam by surprise. The cloaked figure had claimed to be an ally of Jorath's, a diplomat who had once worked alongside him. He wasn't sure what to think of Daxar yet, but Nyara had seemed to trust him. "Are you sure we can trust him?" Adam had asked Nyara that night, after Daxar had left them with the promise of an alliance. "I trust him more than most," Nyara had answered softly. "Daxar is one of the few who wants peace. He's been working to keep Jorath's legacy alive. He will help us, but it won't be easy." Adam nodded, though doubt still lingered in his mind. He had no idea what they were about to face, but Nyara's words had given him some comfort. If she trusted Daxar, then maybe there was a chance. He didn't know what role he would play in all of this, but he was starting to realize that this wasn't just about helping Nyara, it was about something much bigger. The morning of their departure, Adam stood at the window, gazing out at the city below. The streets were bustling with life, but everything felt distant, as though his world had shrunk down to just this small apartment and the woman standing beside him. Nyara was quiet as always, her dark hair falling in waves around her shoulders. She was packed and ready to go, her eyes focused on something far away, her mind already back on Thaler. Adam couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. She was leaving everything behind, the life she had known, the people she had loved. And now, she was relying on him. "You don't have to do this," Adam said softly, his voice carrying the weight of his uncertainty. Nyara turned to him, her eyes filled with something unreadable. "I have no choice," she replied. "I cannot do this alone, Adam. I need you. You are my only hope now." Adam's chest tightened as he took in her words. He wasn't sure he was ready for what lay ahead, but he had already made up his mind. He would go with her. He would protect her. And somehow, he would find a way to help her bring peace to her people. They boarded a small, sleek ship that Daxar had arranged for them, its design unlike anything Adam had ever seen. The ship seemed to hum with life, its smooth surface shifting, slightly as if responding to the environment around it. Nyara had explained that it was a highly advanced craft, one capable of long journeys through the stars. As the ship lifted off from Earth, Adam's heart raced. He had never been off-planet before. He had always thought space travel was a distant dream, something for the scientists and explorers. But now, here he was, flying through the vastness of space with Nyara, heading to a world he couldn't even imagine. Nyara sat beside him, her hands folded in her lap, her face calm and composed. Adam couldn't help but notice how beautiful she was, even in the quiet, serene way she carried herself. Her alien features were striking, her blue skin, her violet eyes that shimmered with depth. She was different from anyone he had ever known, and yet, there was something about her that felt familiar. They traveled for what felt like days, though Adam knew it was only a matter of hours. Time seemed to bend and warp as they soared through space, passing stars, planets, and galaxies Adam had never even heard of. Eventually, they approached the planet of Thalor. Adam had read about it in the brief information Nyara had shared with him, but no description could have prepared him for the sight before him. Thalor was breathtaking. From the distance, the planet appeared like a giant jewel, its surface shimmering with an ethereal glow. There were vast oceans, towering mountains, and lush forests that seemed to stretch for miles. It looked like a paradise, a stark contrast to the war-torn planet Nyara had described. As their ship descended toward the planet, Adam felt a lump form in his throat. This was it. They had arrived. The landing was smooth, and as they disembarked, Adam's feet touched the soil of another world for the first time. The air was different here, thicker, fresher, and he felt an overwhelming sense of awe. Nyara stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "This is my home," she said softly, almost as if speaking to herself. Adam looked at her, unsure of what to say. He wanted to ask what they would do next, how they would fight for peace in a place so beautiful yet filled with so much conflict. But he knew that Nyara's pain went deeper than that. They were met by Daxar, who had already arranged a meeting with some of the leaders who still supported Jorath's cause. He led them through a series of winding paths past ancient structures that seemed to hum with history, until they arrived at a grand building made of stone and crystal. Inside, there were several figures waiting for them. Alien diplomats, military commanders, and others who had once fought for peace alongside. Jorath. Nyara stepped forward, her posture regal, but there was a tension in her shoulders that Adam could sense. She had returned to a place where memories both good and painful would resurface. Daxar introduced her to the group, and Adam watched as Nyara addressed them with a calm authority that surprised him. She spoke of the need to preserve Jorath's vision, of the importance of unity between their people and their allies. But as she spoke, Adam noticed that the others were not as welcoming as he had hoped. Some of them looked skeptical, others hostile. It was clear that the peace Jorath had worked for was fragile. The war wasn't just a distant threat. It was already looming on the horizon. One of the commanders, an imposing figure with dark green skin and sharp features, spoke up. "We cannot trust the factions who once sided with Jorath. They have their own agendas. We are on the verge of war, and the time for diplomacy is over." Niara's expression hardened, but she held her ground. "We cannot let anger and fear cloud our judgment," she said firmly. "If we abandon Jorath's cause now, all his efforts will have been in vain. We must fight for peace, not for ourselves, but for the generations who will follow." The room fell silent. Adam could feel the tension thick in the air, the weight of history pressing down on them. He had no idea how to change things, but Niara had always believed in the possibility of peace. And now, it seemed, he had to believe in it too. As the meeting continued, Adam found himself growing more and more uneasy. He had thought that helping Niara would be a simple matter of offering support. But the reality of the situation was far more complex. The factions on this planet were divided, and no one seemed to agree on how to bring peace to Thalor. Niara's voice broke through his thoughts. "We have to work together," she said, her voice steady. "We may not agree on everything, but if we do not find common ground, we will lose everything." Adam didn't know if they could find that common ground. But as he looked at Niara, standing tall despite the uncertainty around her, he realized one thing. He would stand by her. He would help her fight for what Jorath had fought for. And somehow, they would find a way to bring peace to Thalor, no matter how difficult the journey ahead might be. The sun was setting over Thalor, casting a soft orange glow across the planet's vast landscape. Adam stood outside the grand meeting hall, his arms crossed over his chest, watching the fading light. He had never felt so small in the midst of such grandeur. The planet was beautiful, almost too beautiful to imagine that it was on the brink of war. The lush forests, the gleaming crystal buildings, the towering mountains, all of it felt so fragile. How could something so peaceful be caught in the chaos of galactic conflict? He could still hear the voices from the meeting inside. The leaders had argued for hours, each faction making their case, each one more determined than the last. But despite all the debate, one thing had become painfully clear. Peace was not guaranteed. The factions were too divided, and many were not willing to risk everything for something as uncertain as unity. Adam knew that Niara felt the weight of it all. She had been calm during the meeting, speaking with authority and compassion, but he could see the worry in her eyes. She was the key to all of this, the symbol of the hope Jorath had fought for. And now, she was the one who had to guide these factions back from the brink of destruction. "You're quiet," Niara said, her voice cutting through his thoughts. Adam turned to see her standing in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the soft light. Her long hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her blue skin seemed to shimmer in the twilight. Despite the tension that still hung in the air, there was a peace about her, a quiet strength that Adam had come to admire. "I'm just thinking," Adam said, offering a small smile. "It's a lot to take in, you know? All this politics and war. I never thought I'd be involved in anything like this." Niara stepped closer, her eyes searching his face. "You never thought you'd be involved in war, but you're here now, and you've already made a difference. Your support has given me strength, Adam. Without you, I wouldn't be able to do this." Adam shook his head. "I don't know how much strength I have. I'm not a fighter, Niara. I'm just a mechanic." "You've already fought for what matters most," she said softly. "You've fought for me. And that, more than anything, is what will change the future. We don't need soldiers, Adam. We need people who believe in something greater than themselves." Adam thought about that for a moment. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't someone who had trained for battle or wielded weapons, but what he had was the will to stand by Niara, to help her navigate the impossible tasks she had ahead. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The following days were filled with preparations. The negotiations had failed, but that didn't mean all hope was lost. Niara and Daxar had come up with a new plan, one that involved rallying those who still supported Jorath's vision of peace, including some unlikely allies. It wouldn't be easy, but Niara was determined to bring everyone together, and Adam was with her every step of the way. They traveled to various parts of Thalor, meeting with leaders and commanders who had once fought for peace. Some were willing to listen, but many were skeptical. The wounds from past conflicts ran deep, and it would take more than words to heal them. Adam had never imagined that peace could be so difficult to achieve, especially in a world so beautiful and filled with promise. One evening, after a particularly tense meeting, Niara and Adam sat together in the garden of their temporary quarters. The stars above were brighter than Adam had ever seen, their light flickering like tiny diamonds in the vastness of space. "I never imagined it would be like this," Niara said, her voice quiet as she gazed up at the stars. "I thought peace was something that could be achieved if we just talked, if we just reached out to one another. But now, I see that it's so much more complicated." Adam sat beside her, feeling the weight of her words. "Sometimes it's hard to see the good in people, especially when they're divided by so much. But I think deep down everyone wants peace. They just don't know how to get there." Niara turned to him, her violet eyes full of gratitude. "You're right. I've spent so much time trying to make them see the bigger picture, to show them that peace is worth the sacrifice. But it's not just about convincing others, it's about showing them that we can move forward, together. And you, Adam, have helped me realize that." Adam's chest tightened at her words. He wasn't sure what he had done to help Niara, but he knew that whatever they were doing, whatever was ahead, he couldn't turn back now. He had come too far, and he wasn't going to let her face this alone. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, Niara's efforts began to pay off. She and Daxar worked tirelessly to bring the factions together, holding secret meetings, forging new alliances, and trying to mend the deep wounds that had divided Thalor for so long. It was exhausting, both physically and emotionally. But Niara never gave up. She kept fighting for what Jorath had started, and Adam was right there beside her, offering what support he could. One day, as they sat in a meeting with several key leaders, the atmosphere in the room shifted. For the first time since their arrival, Adam saw a glimmer of hope in the eyes of the commanders. They were beginning to listen, beginning to see that peace was possible. It wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to happen overnight, but it was within their grasp. "We have to act quickly," Niara said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "If we wait too long, the factions will lose faith. We have to show them that peace is worth fighting for." Daxar nodded in agreement. "Agreed. But we must also prepare for the worst. If we're going to succeed, we must be ready to defend ourselves." Adam's heart raced. He had known that things could escalate at any moment, but hearing Daxar's words made it all too real. They were not just fighting for peace, they were fighting for their survival. "I'm ready," Adam said, surprising himself with his own words. "I don't know how much help I'll be in a fight, but I'll stand with you, Niara. I'll do whatever it takes." Niara looked at him, her eyes softening with appreciation. "You've already done more than I could have asked for, Adam. You've given me the strength to keep going." The next few days were filled with intense preparation. The leaders who had once been divided were now working together, but tensions were still high. Adam could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on everyone. There were whispers of rebellion, of those who still wanted war. But for the first time, Adam saw a spark of unity among those who believed in Jorath's vision. One evening, after a long day of discussions, Niara took Adam aside. I need to ask something of you, she said quietly. What is it? Adam asked, sensing the seriousness in her tone. I need you to stay here, in the capital, and help maintain the peace. There are those who will try to sabotage everything we've worked for. I need you to be my eyes and ears. If anything happens, you'll be the one to act. Adam hesitated. He had never imagined being in such a position, but as he looked into Nyara's eyes, he knew what he had to do. He wasn't just a mechanic anymore. He was a part of something bigger than himself. I'll do it, Adam said, his voice filled with resolve. I won't let you down. Nyara smiled, a small but genuine smile. I know you won't. And when this is over, we can finally be free. Adam nodded, but he knew that the road ahead would still be difficult. The peace they were fighting for was fragile, and there was no guarantee that it would hold. But as he stood beside Nyara, watching the stars above, he felt a sense of hope that he had never known before. Whatever the future held, they would face it together.